কোয়েল ম্যাডাম শুরু করো, আমি আছি তো। হ্যালো,
হ্যাঁ হ্যালো ম্যাম। হ্যাঁ
আমাকে শুনতে পাচ্ছ না? আমি আছি, তুমি শুরু করো।
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, আমি শুনতে পাইনি সে কারণে সরি ম্যাম। ঠিক আছে, আমি শুরু
হ্যাঁ,
করছি।
স্যার আছেন, মানে যিনি
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
আমাদের
হ্যাঁ
অনারেবল স্পিকার এসেছেন। হ্যাঁ
হ্যাঁ
হ্যাঁ, শুরু করো।
উনি আছেন।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, শুরু করো শুরু করো।
Good morning everyone. I welcome to our college, Hiralal Mujumdar Memorial College for Women, to our today's webinar, Exploring Open Access E-Resources for Knowledge Enhancement. Today we have with us our honorable speaker, Dr. Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay. But at the beginning of our today's session, I would like to request our principal madam, Dr. Shoma Ghosh, to say a few words. Madam, over to you now.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Koel, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, fine. There must be some network problem, so sometimes my voice is breaking, I think. Okay. On behalf of the entire family of Hiralal Mazumdar Memorial College for Women, I welcome Dr. Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay, Professor, Department of Library and Information Science, University of Kolani. At the same time, I express my gratitude to our librarian, Srimati Koel Shengupta, for his enterprise regarding formation of an informative library. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the members and IQAC coordinator, members of IQAC and IQAC coordinator Dr. Rupa Sen, as well as the webinar organizing committee and its convener Sri Pradipta Mukherjee. And this is not my cup of tea to go into details of library science and open access system, because it is really a science. And right from the beginners up to the scientists and top level academicians, all are dependent on a library for their respective books, periodicals, newspapers, manuscripts, other documents, microfilms, forms, whatever, be helpful for their studies and for academic endeavors. I shouldn't waste time on this, and I'd heartily welcome Dr. Mukherjee for his enlightening speech. And library is a temple for any institution, and librarian is the priest. So I'd rather not only welcome but also would request Dr. Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay to enrich us regarding how to organize a library which will really become a temple for the academicians and for the students. Over to Koel.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite our honorable speaker, Dr. Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay. We all know he is the professor of Department of Library and Information Science, University of Kolani. He is a renowned personality in our field of library and information science. He has authored numerous research papers developed many course materials for IGNOU, course materials for MPhil and LIS under University of Kalyani, UNESCO courseware on open access for librarians. Presently, he is running online courses on SWAYAM platform of MHRD, Government of India. He is associated with National Digital Library of India as metadata consultant, which is developed and maintained by IIT Kharagpur. He is also a member of the advisory committee of National Virtual Library, a project of Ministry of Culture, Government of India. আমরা মেনলি পিএসএন স্যারকে চিনি, সবাই কিন্তু ওনার কখনো ক্লাস করা সেরকম ভাবে হয়তো সুযোগ হয়ে ওঠেনি অন্য ইউনিভার্সিটিতে পড়ার কারণে, কিন্তু পিএসএম স্যারের প্রথম ক্লাস করার সুযোগ পাই ইন্টকোহাতে, বিএলএ অর্গানাইজ করে যেটা ইন্টকোহা, সেখানে প্রথম পিএসএম স্যারের লেকচার শুনি, খুব ভালো লেগেছিল। পরবর্তীকালে লাস্ট ইয়ারে সিউল রিফ্রেশার কোর্সে গিয়েও পিএসএন স্যারের ক্লাস পেয়েছি, খুব ভালো লেগেছে। আর এখন উনি প্রচুর, মানে আমরা জানি প্রচুর ওয়েবিনারও হচ্ছে সব জায়গায়, সেখানে উনি খুব সুন্দর করে লেকচার দিচ্ছেন। মানে আমি একটা দুটো লেকচার অ্যাটেন্ড করে আমি সত্যি খুব মুগ্ধ হয়েছি ওনার কথা বলায়। মানে এত সুন্দর সহজ ভাবে বলা সত্যি তো পিএসএন স্যারের পক্ষেই সম্ভব। So I take this opportunity to invite our honorable speaker to deliver his lecture. Sir, we would love to hear from you. Sir, the platform is yours now.
Thank you, madam, for all the kind words, and with the kind permission of principal madam, let me start today's deliberation. But before that, let me know that whether am I audible enough to you, or should I increase sound slightly?
No, sir, you are audible.
Okay, fine. So today's deliberation is basically deals with, as well requested, that in this pandemic situation, we are living in a virtual world. And the library is actually shut down. You don't have access to your college library, both students and faculty members. So how to handle this situation, how to get rid of this kind of situation. So let us explore the resources, and I'm quite sure that after this particular deliberation, you will be having around 250 million quality resources free of cost, which can help you in your all three facets of teaching, learning, evaluation, as well as a different kind of research and exploring new areas of knowledge. You can refer these particular sites to your students for resources that actually deals with your curriculum. So let us start, and meanwhile I will make my video or keep my video off, because you all know the bandwidth problem. So I will be now going for the presentation mode. Well, can you see the slides now?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, fine. So teaching and research in virtual world, use of open access resources and open source tools. These two we can combine together, and I'm not going to tell you the difficult tools. The easier tools that you can apply in your web browser very quickly and effectively, that I am going to target, and a set of open access resources that can help you in this strange situation. But before making a quantum jump inside the demonstration mode, it will be based on both theoretical presentation and practical demonstration. But before entering into the practical demonstration mode, let me tell you a few basic things, the mistakes we are committing every day in our search and research. So how to get rid of those kinds of mistakes. But before anything else, let me define research. Research here, I don't mean doctoral dissertation. No, when you are giving an assignment to your student on a new topic, you need to read. Your students need to read. So research here means anything unknown about. So when you are exploring some facts of anything unknown about in a systematic manner, that I am taking as a research. And every such research, be it a 10-page journal article, be it a full-fledged doctoral dissertation, or a technical project, or even a student's assignment, can be considered as a research in this particular definition. And all of this kind of research starts with an existing piece of information and ends with a new piece of information. What does it mean? When you are starting your exploration, your systematic investigation on a new area, you need to start with a set of information, and finally your aim or target is to explore something novel, something new, and to record that in a documentary format. So you are again adding up another document in the vast pool of universe of knowledge. So that is basically research. In this way it is moving on. We are all consumer of information. And why do we consume information? Because we want to contribute information. And so as a teacher, a library professional, a researcher is both a consumer of information as well as a contributor of information. Now, if you are a consumer of information right from your nursery school to till date, when you are studying professionally for your teaching, learning, evaluation, can you believe me that entire information sources you have encounter right from the nursery school to PG level to doctoral level and your professional reading can be categorized into only into three groups. These are either primary information sources, which first gives you first-hand research information, new information, novel information. Then comes the secondary information sources, which actually consolidates and condense these primary sources into a group of documentary forms. And then comes the tertiary sources, which actually listing up the primary sources and secondary sources available in a discipline. So information in that sense flows from first they are reported in primary information sources, for example, a journal article, thesis. Then they are condensed and repackaged into secondary information sources like an indexing journal, abstracting journal, reviews, textbook, reference books. Then these are all listed into tertiary sources. But what mistake we do commit every day in our search, we directly target the primary sources for searching. But that should not be the case. Information although flows from primary to secondary to tertiary, our search should begin from tertiary to secondary to primary. So this is the model which holds true for both printed domain of information like your books, journal in printed forms, as well as in online. For example, nowadays you people are starting your search for anything unknown about from Google search engine or a similar kind of search engines. Then you just remember or just try to imagine that when you search Google, it gives you a list of websites. So you are searching against a particular keyword, then Google is listing up the number of websites that includes that particular term in their document. So here also you see the tertiary, secondary and primary model is quite relevant. Tertiary, any search engine or indexing or abstracting database or any that kind of thing is basically giving you the list of websites. List of websites are or a particular given website is a secondary information sources. Why I am telling so? Because that secondary information source again includes different kind of primary source. Just you imagine your college website. It includes the notices related to admission, notices related to different kind of fee structure, then your learning object, and say these are the primary document. Your website is basically a container of this primary document. So that's why it is a secondary source, and Google is a tertiary source because it can identify your website against a query or search. So the same model, primary, secondary, and tertiary, and searching from tertiary to secondary to primary, that holds true for both printed domain and online domain. So here in this particular slide, you will have a better idea that these are all primary information sources: journal, paper, research report, conference proceeding. Why I am saying these are primary sources? Because they gives you new information, first-hand research information. Then they are condensed and repackaged in different kind of secondary services. Like every discipline in science got an abstracting service, like in chemistry, chemical abstract; biology, biological abstract; in the field of material science, ceramics abstract, and so on, every domain. So these are called indexing services, abstracting services. Sometimes they merge together to form abstracting and indexing services. Review papers or review journal, research, reference books, textbook, monograph, all comes under the secondary, because they don't give you primary sources of information. They basically compile information from primary sources and then gives you a systematic exposition on a given subject. Then how can I know that how many more reference books or journals available in the domain, in a given domain, like physics? So there are lot of listings are there. These are called tertiary sources, directories, yearbooks, and so on. For example, if I want to know how many journals are there, there is a on a given subject like philosophy or political science, there is a tool called Aldrich International Periodical Directory. From there, I can identify how many secondary journals, abstracting journal, indexing journal are there. Then I can identify those journals. In those journals, I can search my keyword and I can reach up to the journal paper or the article, which is the primary source. So this is the model of searching. Now comes the question, why do we people search? What is in our mind? You are again searching for only four purposes. Anything you are searching, be it in a library, be it in a search engine, be it in a website, your purposes can be categorized only under four groups. Either it's a current approach. Most of the teachers, you are the subject experts, so you already know what is the subject, but you don't know what happened in the last 7 days in my area of interest, what happened last 30 days in my area of research interest. So that is called current approach. I want to keep abreast myself with the ongoing changes. Then comes everyday approach. That means some professional activities, some areas of research require a set of information before entering inside the lab or inside the job place. For example, the job of a financial analyst, if he or she goes to the office without the set of information, what is the stock profile of that particular very morning, then he or she possibly can't start work. Similarly, when you talk about a nuclear scientist, a space scientist, so lot many atmospheric data on that particular moment required by them, and these are called everyday approach. I cannot start my job without this basic set of information. So that is true for the lab-based job also. Next comes the exhaustive search. Most of you people are associated with this exhaustive search when you are doing a Google search. When you are making a Google search by giving a query like environmental pollution, Google retrieve almost all possible documents available inside the database. You are not giving any kind of filtering there. So that is called an exhaustive search. I want to retrieve everything on this given keyword against a particular database. I want to retrieve everything on environmental pollution from Google database. So that's an exhaustive search. But the last one is really interesting and coming up very quickly. That is called catching up approach. Because of the lot many interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research, what is happening nowadays? Suppose I am an expert in a given domain, but I am a layman in other field. So when it comes around the interdisciplinary research or multidisciplinary research, we need to pick up basic theories, fundamental principles of another subject of which I am not an expert. So there are different kind of resources that can help me to catch up the basic fundamental theories, principles, practices of a given subject area which I simply do not know very quickly. These are called different kind of advanced skills, different kind of annual reviews, different kind of systematic reviews. So this kind of catching up approaches are becoming very popular. So at the end of the day, we have only three categories of resources and four categories of approach to information. So on this particular backdrop, now let us start our deliberation. Last 10-15 years, our scholarly communication process, the way we interact with the scholarly communication process has changed a lot because of the four fundamental factors. First one is the open and distributed information system, what we colloquially call as internet. Then the entire internet is built on the top of open source software and open standards. So we are getting finally beautiful products on the top of these two ingredients. One is called open access publishing system, that is the target of the day, and next is the open learning system. So open access publication system or publishing system and open learning system are two facets of the same coin. They simply sometimes they are completely inseparable. In fact, open learning system is coming up as a subset of open access publishing system. So that I will be coming later on. So how open access publishing system, which is basically a product of this particular platform called internet, and by utilizing open source software and open standards, this is coming up very quickly, and we are not quite aware about this movement. So what happens as a result, we search information in Google. At the end of the day, we find 10-15 most relevant document, but again we find that of these 10 documents which I retrieved by spending 4-5 hours in computer or internet, half of them are basically copyright protected, so I cannot access full. So that means internet or Google sometime acting as a restaurant where menu card is available, but the moment you are ordering a particular food stuff, by consulting that menu card, it says that this food is not for you. So this kind of situation I am facing, you are facing, everybody is facing, that it's a restaurant. Internet is a kind of restaurant where menu card is available, not the food stuff. The moment you go for the food stuff, it tells you that your library do not subscribe to it and everything. And we know the resources available in a college. So most of the cases, the high-end requirements for the faculty members, like data set, research paper, journals, a college library cannot fulfill because of the different kind of budgetary constraints. So how to get rid of this kind of situation? How individually you can access? How library as a whole can integrate this kind of resources inside the interface, search interface? That is the topic of deliberation of the day. Now, I always start with this particular quote. It's a very favorite quote of mine, given by Samuel Johnson. Those faculty members which are from language and literature, they know Samuel Johnson. He is the first lexicographer in the history of English language. So he once said that knowledge has two facets. What is the knowledge and where is the knowledge? So you are all subject experts, you know what is the knowledge. So today's deliberation deals with the next facet or the second facet of the knowledge. Where is the knowledge? Open knowledge movement is basically, we need to define it first, that what is an open knowledge object or open knowledge movement. I'll be again coming in this particular concept. Before starting, you just need to know that open knowledge means a knowledge object. It can be a data, it can be content like journal paper, it can be government information, when it works in an open way. That means submission is open, peer review is open, and access is always open without any discrimination. Anyone can access these resources from anywhere in the world without any kind of discrimination. So that is the against the copyright, and this movement is also termed as copyleft. That means here authors are not holding their copyright, Rather, they are giving away their intellectual property free of cost to others for consultation, because that way only knowledge can increase. And for the betterment of the society, knowledge must be open. So that is the philosophy. So knowledge is open, or any knowledge object is open if it is free to use, reuse, and redistribute it without any legal, social, or technological restriction. So without any socio-legal or socio-technical restriction, if you are giving it free to others, they can use it, they can reuse it for any number of lawful purposes. They can redistribute with others like students and colleagues. So that is called an open knowledge object, and everything under the framework of a legal suit. That is, it is legally permissible. You are not, going for any act of theft or something like that. So finally, the entire open access publishing system is powered by internet, and internet is powered by any to the power 6. That means any user from anywhere at any time can access any information object in any language, in any format. That is the power of internet. It's an electronic democracy, and in that electronic democracy, open knowledge object or open knowledge movement is basically providing the foodstuff, basically providing the content in that particular platform. So with this, let me tell you that although internet includes many tools, access tools, like it started with Telnet, then came FTP, Archie, Gopher, but when the father of the web, Tim Berners-Lee, developed World Wide Web, that actually ate up every other resources like FTP, Gopher, and other things. So everything actually now talks about web. So internet is not the web only. Internet is web plus. There are many other access points, but sometimes brand name becomes more popular than the generic name. I can give you one example. Say for example, when you are going to photocopying a particular piece of paper, we always very often says that give me a Xerox of this particular piece of paper. Actually, Xerox is the name of the company who developed the first photocopier. You are trying to photocopying this particular object. So you see here that the entire photocopier is basically termed by Xerox, because Xerox was the first company to develop photocopier. Similar things happen. Internet includes many things, but web become very popular, and now internet is web, web is internet. So in this particular domain, there are three kinds of web searching tool: subject directories, search engines, and meta search engine. Again, we do commit one mistake generally. When we are searching internet through web searching tools, we directly jump to search engines. We never try academic subject directories like Infomine or commercial subject directories. We simply jump to text-based search engine like Google, Yahoo, etc. And there are many other tools that is called meta search engine. So subject directory, what is the difference? Subject directory is developed, it's a human indexing based system. A group of human experts, subject experts, go through the web, they select particular pages against a particular category of subject. So it's a human indexing system. And then search engine is an automated indexing system. So they send crawler to the internet, they collect the documents automatically, and they go for indexing. That's why relevance is not ensured in case of a large textual search engine like Google. And meta search engine is a search engine of search engine. So when you are searching, you want to search everything on a given area of knowledge from different search engine database. Instead of going separately to Google, Alta Vista, Northern Light, Cut2, etc., you come to any meta search engine, search the term, and that can search all the back-end search engines you are selecting, like Google, Yahoo, Alta Vista, and so on. So it's a search engine of search engine. So these three kinds of tools are there, but I do know that Google is the most popular for you. So let us start our first demonstration here. So what we are doing wrong with Google? Google is as good as it gets. Please remember, in a library, you can very easily search that how many books written by a given author. Say, for example, you want to know that how many books are there in your library written by Amartya Sen. But that kind of simple search, which is very easy for in a library setup, that is not possible in Google. You cannot search books or documents written by Amartya Sen here. If I search by Amartya Sen, it will retrieve document written by Amartya Sen, document with a link to Amartya Sen, and in most of the cases, the Wikipedia article, bio article on Amartya Sen will come first. So that kind of heterogeneous mixtures is there. So if you are really using Google as your first point of search, you please give your concentration for next 10 minutes. It can save 10,000 hours in your life. Let me demonstrate before you. So I hope that all of you can see this browser, Google. You can see the browser, Google.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The browser is
Now
visible.
you see, I am searching the way you people search. So I am searching environmental pollution, as everybody present here know the term. I am using that one instead of any domain specific query. So Google is very smart. It can give me auto suggestion. So I am picking up the auto suggestion environmental pollution and searching. Now you see here Google represent data in different groups. These are called sets. Each set includes normally 20 documents, but in your personal profile, you can increase the size. So this is the default behavior of Google, 20 documents in the set one. First thing is that we never go beyond set number 2 or 3. And most often we restrict ourselves in the set number 1. And how many documents Google retrieve against this query? Amazingly, 28 crore 60 lakhs of documents. Can you believe it? Against an any odd query, I understand that environmental pollution is a very common term. Still, 28 crore 60 lakhs, almost 29 crore. Can you consult in your lifetime? And are you sure that the first what is coming in the first first few sets, set 1 and set 2, those only are most relevant for you? There is no other relevant materials beyond set number 3 or 4 what we never consult. So to get rid this kind of situation, because you see, in a highly scientific endeavor like research, you are depending on your luck in the very first step of your research when you are searching information. In no point of your research, in no step in your research, you are depending on luck. Your research investigation process is based on solid methodology and the ground of hypothesis. So everything is scientific except the search. In search, you are depending only on luck. If I am getting something good in the first few sets, I'm feeling myself lucky and I'm grateful to Google, but I simply do not know whether I am missing out the most relevant document or not. So let me tell you the 4 techniques which can ensure the retrieval of most relevant document in the first few sets of Google search. So the same environmental pollution, which is a very common word for searching, you see how I can improve my search from 28 crore 60 lakhs 400 to 500. So I will explain later on. First, you see the result. I will explain every bit of it, but first you see the result. So this is the query I am giving in place of the, initially you may find it very hard, but when I will explain, everything will be easy. Now see, again this particular query, if I search Google, you see the result, what it is coming in place of this 28 to 60 lakhs. In one go I can do that. You see the magic. Now Google gives you only 660. These are the most relevant documents, and as you know, these are the most relevant documents for your research. So you can go for different sets. So all sets will carry the relevance of result. And I can even restrict it, you see, I can go for the next level domain. Again, the result will be less. 306, almost half. If I search only for PowerPoint presentation, I will explain everything. You see the improvement, and Google is saying nothing available. So this kind of situation or relevancy we can ensure. So now let me explain the things we have utilized here one by one. I have utilized here only 4 special keywords or special search techniques available in Google. First thing is that whenever you are searching a multiple keyword, you need to enclose that in inverted code. That means you are telling your Google that you don't want in the simple boolean joining between environmental and pollution. Rather, you want to search environmental pollution as a phrase, that means as a bound term. So whatever you are searching, a multiple keyword kind of thing, it can be 3 word, it can be 4 word, that doesn't matter. Always enclosed with a double inverted code to instruct Google that you are searching a phrase, not by individual terms. Then search that particular phrase in title of the document. If that particular phrase appearing in the title of the document, that means that one is the most relevant against your query. Because anything what you want coming in the title of that particular document, that means the focus of that paper actually goes to that is the core focus. So I am here now retrieving those documents where environmental pollution as a phrase appear in the title. The special keywords is all in title. We have to write in lowercase and then a colon. There will be no space before colon, no space after colon, and then your phrase. Then after that, I am giving another special keyword file type colon. So file type is instruct Google that you are interested to retrieve only this kind of file format. So the extension of file you need to give. So PDF. It can be doc also. For example, if I give I want to retrieve only doc file, that is MS Word file, you see again the result will be changing. So every time you can utilize different file extension. Sometimes Google can tell you this kind of thing, that you are using lot many advanced level query, prove that you are not a robot. So I proved I am not a robot, I am a simple human being. And you see here one result only. In doc format, there is only one result. And here you can find out that as I give in doc format, it will retrieve only the doc format or PDF format. So why I am insisting on PDF format? Because in the internet, most of the academic resources available in open format, portable document format. It's an open format, and that's why we can search by this one. Then next last line is really very interesting. Or last special keyword. Say for example, it is not there. So you see what is happening. So it is now searching globally all the documents having the phrase environmental pollution in the title and file type PDF. You can see all are PDF. So these are all 5,860 results. I want to retrieve everything on a given country, site:JP, that means Japan. And here you see how many documents are coming from Japan on this particular phrase. How to know that what are the different, this is called CCTLD, country code top level domain. In your domain name, suppose your college, you just remember your college URL. So that always ends with ac.in. So that .in stands for India. AC stands for second level domain, that means academic domain. So every country in the world is represented by 2-letter alpha code. The first the scheme developed by a group of librarians that is called Common Communication Format for the cataloging purpose to represent the country of publication in 2-letter alpha code. Later on, International Standard Organization took up that particular scheme. They given or reframed that particular scheme as ISO 3166. So if you search by ISO 3166 in Wikipedia, you can have a list of it's a 2-part standard. Part 1 includes the names of all the country. If you're interested to know that which particular country code is available against one, so you can consult the Wikipedia article. If you come down to this article, here you see all alpha code of all countries are given. So this is called ISO 3166, first developed by library professionals for the cataloging purposes. Later on, people started using in the domain name. So here you can see all the alphabetical order is there. So you can identify all domain names, and there you can utilize it. So if I search in, then again I can go for the second level domain, ac.in, res.in, co.in, and so on. This is called SLD, sub-level. In this way we can rectify our search. So only 4 I have given to you: site colon to restrict to a given country, file type colon to restrict to a given file type, phrase operator to bound terms together, and all in title to search a particular phrase in a given word. If you are using a single word, then the keyword is in title. Don't use all there, in title for a single word. Suppose I am searching pollution in the title, so I will be giving in title colon pollution, and so on. So this is the 4 techniques associated with the Google. Now again we are going back to the presentation. So you now you know little bit of this thing, how searching you can rectify. But still, their problem is there. Still, you know now little bit of searching, how to trigger your search. But because of the large size of the web, 70% of the web is not at all indexable. This is called the deep web or invisible web. For example, I am giving you just one example. You can understand what is invisible web or deep web. Just imagine your library in your college and the opaque or online public access catalog of that library available through internet. People can go there, people can search there, and your library has got around 50,000 books. So altogether you are offering to the internet one static page where people can search opaque plus 50,000 records. So 50,000 plus 1. But Google can index only that static HTML page, not the 50,000 records you are having inside the database, because you are not allowing Google to enter inside your database. That will be too risky. So you don't allow Google to enter there. So Google won't index 50,000 document available under the website. It will only index, or it can only index the static page of your library opaque. So you are offering 50,000 plus 1, but Google can index only 1. So just you now imagine the whole web situation. 70% of the web is not at all searchable. Only the surface level 30% is searchable. Of that 30%, web is such a big entity. Of that particular 30% also, the best search engine can index only 20% of the web. I'm getting some peculiar news from your end. Is can you check, is there any hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you of that particular news, that particular noise? Or should
Yes,
I continue?
Sir, continue. We are trying to mute the audio of one participant.
Okay. So what I was saying, that base search engine can cover only 20% of the web, and you see of that 30%, only 30% is indexable, of which 20% is actually retrievable by the search engines. And the next one, as I said, the post-retrieval access. You identify a set of relevant documents, but most of the scholarly materials you find there under copyright. People started thinking of a parallel movement called copyleft. Later on, that copyleft movement, converted into open knowledge movement, of which open access publishing system, open learning systems are simple parts. So let us go into that particular concept, how it can help you in this time of pandemic. So this is one lady, Alexander Albekai. Those faculty members who are from the science discipline all know them. So they started with the guerrilla open access manifesto written by Aaron Swartz. They started this movement that is called guerrilla open access system. You just to understand open access knowledge system, the history of open knowledge system, it is always better to remember the history of Indian freedom struggle. I find it is with Indian freedom struggle and the open. For example, the most striking similarity is that there are certainly two groups in open access movement, as what it was there in Indian freedom struggle. One group is saying we will be going in the legal way on the basis of non-cooperation, non-violence, you know, with on the basis of discussion, on the basis of legal fight, we will on the actually resembles the mainstream Indian freedom struggle under Gandhiji, non-violence, non-cooperation, and ahimsa. Another one is extremist group. That is guerrilla open access manifesto. They are looting publisher. So let us loot them. Let them teach a lesson. So that belongs to the concept of extremist group of Indian freedom struggle. So I'm just telling you this to remember things properly. So this is led by Aaron Swartz, who committed suicide after 6 months in rigorous imprisonment. He is considered as the first open access Shahid. And according to his philosophy and principle, later on Alexander Albecain came and she started Sci-Hub. But that is guerrilla open access. So here in this particular deliberation, I am just targeting the mainstream open access within 100% legal framework. And everything I am telling here you are legally open. That means you can access any of this against legal right. So open access is merging with another technology called Web 2.0 to facilitate to find research faster and easier, to open research socially, legally, and technically. The main reason or the main philosophy is that of this particular open access movement, be it mainstream, be it guerrilla, thing is that when 90% of the research all over the world is funded by the government, and funded by the government means funded by the public, by the taxpayers' money. So when 98% of the research is funded by the government, then why copyright belongs to 90% of the copyright belongs to only 5 companies in this world? Elsevier for science and technology, Fluor for material science, Chapman and Hall for biomedical engineering and biomedical sciences, and John Wiley for math and stat. So these 4 5 companies are enjoying 90% of the copyright of all intellectual property, basically funded by the public, basically funded by the taxpayers' money. So when I am doing research, my funding comes from CSIR or DBT or UGC. That is basically taxpayers' money. But the moment I get through something good, I tend to publish my paper in a foreign journal. So again, my library is buying that particular journal. So government of India first spending or funding me to do the research. I publish my research in a foreign journal. Again, my library is buying it, which is again funded by the government of India. So for each and every research, government of India is paying twice, double edge payment system, and it is happening not only in India, in most of the countries. So that is the reason that the slogan is that publicly funded research must be available in the public domain free of cost. Because if a taxpayer funded my research, he or she has every right to read my research report. So that is the philosophy which started open access movement. These are the reasons. Taxpayer pay for their research, but printed knowledge journals are available only to subscribers. Traditional publishers own the copyright to all research or published material. Licensing is very complex and restrictive. We are simpleton teachers, we are simpleton researcher. We do not know the legal terms. We do not read the legal terms. We do not understand the legal concept. So that is the reason that we are not able to access the research. Hello, sorry for the interruption. Actually, because of some network problem, let me again start.
Yes, yes, sir. We are waiting for you. No issues.
See, this thing I was actually wanted to talk that how things are everything is going in the publisher's hand, and what is this particular backdrop of this kind of resources. First thing, we all do research. As I said, we are both contributor and consumer of information. We do research. We write to the journal for publication. This is many tough people. Many times they will return back your paper. Finally, your paper published in a commercial journal with high impact factor. So what happened to that particular paper? It came to the library, back volumes of journal, lines of back volumes on a given particular serial is there. So one fine morning, again a young researcher pick up a particular back volume, read your paper, got inspiration, start their work. So this is a transfer cycle, information transfer cycle. We consume as well as we contribute. So okay. So you all know this particular event because you are a researcher. Many of you are having your doctoral degree, research publications. You all know the factor. So why I am telling this? I am telling because something went very wrong in this particular process. And what is that? One Harvard University professor conducted one research from 96 to 2002. And during this particular period of time, journal price increased the tune of plus 222%. Whereas if you go through the yellow dotted line, consumer price index increased in the tune of only plus 64%. So if journal price increase 90%, 100% admissible, but why 222% nobody knows? Because this is a peculiar industry. When you publish a particular page journal, do they pay you? No. Your paper goes to your senior colleagues for quality checking. That is called peer review process. Do they pay them? No. Then the editorial board people, do they pay them? No. So they are the only industry in the world who are procuring raw materials free of cost, but selling that raw material after processing, after publication in an exorbitant price. So journal price increased in this period 222%. So people started thinking that printing cost is there, distribution cost is there, that may be the reason. But when the online revolution came, there is no printing cost, there is no distribution cost, but still another researcher started that one from 86 to 2010. So journal price increased in the tune of plus 400% during this period. Previously it was plus 222, now it is plus 400%. And the most recent study by Vox Group, it's one of the prestigious institute of our domain, Association of Research Libraries, ARL. So they started recently up to 2014, journal price increased in the tune of 521%. And nobody knows the reason. So as a result, in the entire world, what is happening? It is called serials crisis. We people write paper, we people edit the paper, but journal is not going beyond our hand. This is not readable. You cannot read a journal paper because of the price constant. So as a result, what is happening? Library budget is not increasing in the tune of 200%. Rather, it is sinking. And every year they are rising price. So every year libraries are dropping title. Next year they again rise price. Next year again libraries dropping title. So as a result, it become a vicious cycle. Every year they rise price, and every year libraries cut down the title, journal titles. So who are suffering? Library professionals? No. Academia is suffering a lot. You people write your paper, but you people don't have access to journal papers or any knowledge object. And Journal industry is a perfect example of oligopoly. 4 or 5 major players are dominating the market. And as I said, the government of India, like any other developing countries, is paying twice for research. First, they are funding the research. Second, they are buying their own funded research. So this is the situation. And against this backdrop, open knowledge I'm just keeping a few slides. The neo-conventional model of publication is open access to knowledge. And as I said, in this open access to knowledge, the tertiary sources are the most important one, and we need to know different kind of tertiary sources. So now I am going into the demonstration mode, how different tertiary sources can help you. But just think that entire open access movement can be divided into two groups. One is the gold path, that is the open access journals. You are directly publishing your paper in open access journal. Another is the green path, the self-archiving path, that you are publishing your paper in commercial journal, but one copy of that paper, preprint version or postprint version of the paper, you can archive in any of the open access repositories. That will help you in two ways. First, you are supporting a great cause. Your paper is readable by others. Other people can consult your paper. And if your paper available online in full text mode, chances of getting citation is higher. So at the end of the day, it does not matter how many papers you have written. At the end of the day, it does matter how many citations you have received for your papers. So in that way, it can help us. We can be benefited of this movement, both as a consumer of information, as a contributor of information. So as I said, that there are two major paths in open access, gold path and green path. So let us now explore. Now I am stopping this presentation and going to the demonstration mode. So we demonstrated already the Google search part. Now I am going to the tertiary source of the gold path. So what is the tertiary source of the gold path? How can I know how many open access journals are there in my domain, in my area of knowledge? So the tertiary sources developed. So most of the cases, what I am going to show you, these are developed by different universities of the world. So first one is called DOAJ. You can see here, Directory of Open Access Journal. And don't worry about the site address. I will share all the site address in a plain simple Word format so that you can access it. So watch what it can do for us. It is developed by Lund University, University of Lund, Switzerland. So there I can search by title or the article. Title or article. Suppose I want to know how many journals are there in political science. So if I search, so it will search all the journals in political science. And how many journals are available? 15,000 plus. How many articles are available free of cost? 52 lakhs. So it's a huge reputed tertiary source. So now you can see, so these are the journals available in the domain of political science. As it is a global tool, many languages there. So again, I can restrict my search by language. So I am interested in English language only. So there are 378 number of journals in the domain of politics in English language. And most of the cases you see, these are supported by a licensing agreement, as I said, Creative Commons licensing system. So if it is available under Creative Commons licensing system, then you are legally, you can do anything. You can read the paper, you can download the paper, you can adapt the paper, you can adapt the paper, you can distribute the paper, you can redistribute the paper. So all kind of legal rights are associated with Creative Commons. The concept of left, you are giving a license which aims to utilize your material. So these are the things. Again, suppose we search Google by environmental pollution, it can retrieve a mixture of document. But if I want to retrieve the open access journal article, so I can search here, I can uncheck journal, and I can check article, and I can give my search here. Now I'm only articles. Now you see, here you can see how many journals and how many papers. So it is now trying to retrieve all papers related to 7,584 research paper in the domain of environmental pollution. Now again, I can go for different kind of full text search. Full text search is already there, English language, and here everything you see, everything related to full text. So that means it's not giving only you the menu card, but also giving you the original food stuff. The full text you here, and the full text will be coming. So this is the first tool, the green path, gold path. Now, green path. The concept of green path is slightly difficult. That means you are publishing a paper, and a published paper has got 3 versions. Before sending to the editorial board, that is called the preprint version. Then after publication, it is called the exact published version. And after publication period is where you are changing something in your title, something in your data set, something in your conclusion, that become post-print version of the paper. Legally, you can upload your preprint version or post-print version of the paper in any of the repository, open access repository. So how to find out how many repositories are there in my domain? So we need another tertiary tool. So that tertiary tool developed by University of Nottingham, that is called Open Door. Open Door recently changed their domain, but if you search by Open Door, still it can direct you to that particular site. This is Open Door developed by University of Nottingham. Here I can know that how many open access repositories are there in my domain, and then I can search those repositories. For example, I am interested in education, suppose. Here I will just first click the advanced search. And as it is developed by a group of librarians, you can see here. So Library of Congress subject heading categories we are utilizing here. So these subject categories are coming from LOC, Library of Congress subject heading list. So there you can see arts and humanities is there, health medicine, multidisciplinary, science, social sciences. So I am interested in education, suppose. So in this way I can select my area of interest and click the search. So now all the repositories, 209 repositories available all over the world, which archives already published paper in different commercial journal donated by the faculty members legally, are listed in one place. So I can either search there for the full text, or I can go to individual repository to search there. So suppose there are, on an average, there are 10,000 plus articles, faculty publications of a given university. So now you can do your math, 239 into 10,000. So how many documents are available free of cost in the domain of education? Similarly, you can select many other domains like science, bioscience, etc. So this is the tertiary tools in the green path. Now, as a college teacher, sometimes you need to have access to textbook for your student, in particularly in this e-learning area. So let me tell you one of the source, that is called DOA Books, Directory of Open Access Books. These are all open access, and the sign and symbol of open access developed by UNESCO. So now DOA Books provide you 31,500 academic peer-reviewed quality documents. And please remember also one particular thing I missed to tell you. In this DOAJ, if any particular open access journal listed in DOAJ, that means it passed 21 quality parameters seal. That is called DOAJ quality seal. So anything listed in DOAJ is a journal of good quality. It is not predatory publication, because if a particular journal continuously publishing for the 5 years, if they are not charging, if they have proper peer review process, renowned in the edit, then only this journal listed in DOAJ. So please be assured quality is ensured. Similarly, in case of a DOA, this 31,000 books you are having free of cost legally at the full text level, all quality documents in different domains of education. So that you can also search. But many other interesting book sites are there. So let me tell you a few groups. that is openlibrary.org. As I said, the person called Aaron Swartz, who started Guerrilla Open Access, he also developed this openlibrary.org. That means every book in the world has got a presence here. You can search books here, and if that particular book is copyright free, you can download in different formats like EPUB format, PDF format, etc. If that book is still under copyright, then you can register yourself free of cost openlibrary.org, that is the site, and there you can issue that book for reading, just like your library you do it. Here you can do it electronically, and that book will be available in your personal library inside the open library for 14 days for reading. So again, you can renew it, or you can resubmit it or recheck it. So in this way, you can almost all of the books of the world you can either download or you can go for reading. Another interesting site I can tell you, although people are publishers are basically started issuing lot many objection of this particular site, but this is one of the biggest historical site of internet archive, archive.org. So all copyright free book, classic book, out of print book you can have from here. Just I am sharing a story with you. For one of my dissertation project, one of my student required the first edition of Kopal Kundala, just to the textual deviation from the original publication to the latest edition, and to compare a thing when Bankim Chandra was living, what are the changes occurred, and after Bankim Chandra died, what are the changes done by the publishers. So we need badly the first edition, very first edition of Kopal Kundala. No libraries in India could provide that. So we got the very first edition of Kopal Kundala from this site, archive.org. So all the out of print book, rare documents, old material, 15th century, 17th century, even 16th century, you can find it here. It's a mine of information for the language and literature. Then the next best site I can tell you related to books, that is called Hathi Trust, and the term Hathi they have taken from India. So the animal elephant is representative of the memory. We call it elephantal memory. So it's a memory of the world project. So they took the term Hathi from India, and here you can see, you can search just like a catalog. So if you select catalog, I can search like a library OPAC, title, author, etc., or I can search the full text also. That means inside the document I can also search. So Hathi Trust is another great source of resource. You can read the book, you can download the book, you can create your own library there, you can list you can prepare your favorite list of books there. So no legal issues, everything is legal. So you better try in this particular sometimes hathirtrust.org. So these are all related to book. Now if you are interested into thesis, I can tell you one particular thesis site which can the entire world. So you already know as a researcher that Government of India through Inflipnet started one national thesis repository called Shodh Ganga. So Shodh Ganga contains around 48,000 full text thesis. So that 48,000 full text thesis available from Indian universities. But suppose for your research you want to make a search. So similar other national thesis repositories are there. One from UK, one from US, one from Finland, one from Romania, many other things. So there are altogether 85 thesis repositories all over the world. So it is not possible for me to roam around all 85 thesis repositories to find out exclusively material related to my research area. There my suggestion is that you better come to oatt.org. So it's a single point access for all the research of the world. Now suppose the same environmental pollution, if I want to start here, here you can see the environmental pollution. Now I am searching thesis from everywhere of the world, and you see the power of this particular service. It's a single window search interface. So here you can filter by year, I can filter by university, I can filter by degree, say doctoral dissertation. 361 from all over the world. In Source.Ganga, you can find hardly 12 to 30. Those 30 will be included here. But another 300 plus resources you can have. So all PhD level full text thesis I can download from here. I can site click to get the simply download click the title. So these are the 301 resources. If I want to have this resource, I can click here, then I can download. So this is a single point search interface for the entire thesis repositories of the world. But the killer application developed by a group of librarians in the open access domain. As I promised you that after this deliberation, you will be having 250 million of full text resources. So this is the search site or academic search engine called BASE, developed by a group of librarians under the Bielefeld University Library, Germany. So as I said, that universities are taking the lead in open access. So if you can read it here, 243 million resources available, and it's not a matter of joke. 1 million is equal to 10 lakhs. So you calculate again 243 million resources in a single place, covering green path, gold path, book, thesis, everything in a single repository. So these are the piecemeal approach I have said. You needing a full text article here. You needing a commercially published full text article here. You need a book, you go here. You need a thesis, you go here. But here at the last, what I am going to tell you, that everything is in one platform developed by a group of librarians. So suppose here also I am searching environmental pollution. What I searched in Google and other things. Now you see the difference. So if I search again by the environmental pollution as a phrase, you can see it here. You see what it can do for me. So it is now searching 248.3 million resources. And you see it took only a few nanoseconds to give you the result. So 75,000 plus resources available in environmental pollution. And you see here how easy it is to switch over to field level search. Restrict this by title, by author, by subject. Google you can restrict by title, but not by author, not by subject. So here you can search by author, by subject, just like a library OPAC. So let us restrict the search in title, and you will see these result sets will be limited now. So now it is searching this environmental pollution as a phrase in title. Result is now 5,320. And here you see, right from here, I can know whether the resource academy open access or not. And you see the display also, and mentally compare the display with the Google. Google gives you a chunk of text. Until you click and check, you simply do not know whether this material is relevant for your research or not. But here it says who is the author, what is the year of publication, and many more. So right from here, I can take a decision. If I am quite interested to have the full text, I can click here because it is available as open access, and I can have the full text. I simply do not need to know from where it is coming. If you go to the right hand side, there are a lot many search refinements you can combine. You can restrict by language. I'm interested in only English. You can restrict by document type. I am interested only in the article. You are interested in publication, you are interested only in the latest 2019. So you see here, in this way you can reduce your result through refinement, far better than Google. Why people think Google is the best search engine? Simply I do not know. When you search your mobile phone model, electronic gadget, Google is possibly the best. But if you are really serious about academic search, Google is no good. And you better to use the search engine like BASE, developed by a group of librarians. And you see here the advanced search interface, how advanced it is really. You can restrict your search by different metadata, title, author, subject, DOI, etc. You can restrict your search by document type. Initially, all will be selected. If you uncheck it, you can select only journal. You can select which kind of thesis you want to include in your search. Bachelor thesis, master or doctoral thesis. Your preference of open access. If I check non-open access, nothing will be coming. Only open access will be coming. And interestingly, I can search by continent. In Google, you have seen you can restrict your search against a country. That you can do it here. But against, you can do everything from a continent, say Asia, and year of publication. I want everything from, this is called range search, 2010 to 2020. So this kind of search refinement, search advancement is there. And apart from that, a retrieval system is a combination of searching and browsing. So Google often neglect that browsing part, but here you see, as it is again done by a group of experts. They are the library professional all over the world. I contributed a few things like what I'm going to show you now. So I can search by the class number. So most of you, when go to your stock library stack room, you see that books are arranged by a peculiar kind of number, that is we call call number. Call number is a combination of class number and book number. Class number we normally procure from the DDC. If you ask your librarian friend that what is the main class number for my area of interest, my teaching area, suppose you are a student of zoology or botany, so or chemistry, so you can ask the main class. Say for example, chemistry, the main class is 540. So here you can browse by the DDC class number. So there are three summaries will be there: first order, second order, and third order. So you can browse through. Say this is the first order summary as per Dewey. Suppose I am interested in social sciences. This many documents, within parentheses the number of documents available. If I am going for the second order division of social science, the second order will be coming: sociology, statistics, political science. I am interested in economics. Third order divisions will be coming, and within bracket number of documents. Say for example, I want to retrieve everything on chemistry in one go. So there is, apart from browsing, you can search also. Say I simply need to search by giving DDC as a label, DDC colon 540. So all resources related to main class chemistry will be coming. If you are interested in many in a kind of subclass, like say there are 6,14,000. I am interested in mineralogy. Mineralogy is 549. DDC colon 549. So now you see the result will be much less, only 28. So in mineralogy domain there are 28 resources, but as a whole chemistry domain there are 6,16 resources. So you just need to know the main class. You ask your librarian friend. Now the last part of my presentation is that how different tools can help me. Suppose everything is still not available in the open access domain. Almost 50% resources available in the open access domain, GreenPath, GoldPath, etc. 50% still available in different kind of closed source commercial channel. So now you see, you all know Science Direct. So I'm going to Science Direct. So right from your home, you can search different kind of commercial repository like this. Science Direct is a journal portal of Elsevier containing all their 1500 journals in one place. So suppose I am searching something called web scale discovery. Web scale. So what are the, this is out and out commercial. So I'm searching web scale. I already searched, channels, access channels. Now it is saying it is trying to tell me the sign in. Who cares? I don't want to sign. I don't want to pay. But here you see, suppose this one, large scale relation extraction from web document. It is not an open access journal paper. So suppose I am opening it up. This paper, suppose I need. Now you see my tool started working there. You can see in my browser domain that I have many extensions. This one is called Copernio. It can tell me where I can have a free full text paper. Now this is called core extension. It says that, okay, core is a repository, just like OpenDoor. So one free full text is available here. If I click here, it can lead to me. So in this way, these are the tools called, open access, digital access broker, open source software that you can install in your Google Chrome extension as Google Chrome extension. This is Copernio, this is Core, this is unpaid semantic citation or SCite. So these four you better install in your browser, and any commercial paper, suppose that is not available in the open access channel, you can access from anywhere of the world, because somewhere it is there, you simply do not know. So on behalf of you, this extension can work to find the materials you want. Another interesting thing is that, say for example, I'm going to Google Scholar. Now tools are there which can read on behalf of you. What it can read? Say I am still searching the web scale resources. So suppose this first one. Here the condition is that the document must be available in PDF format. It can read on behalf of you. For example, the third one is coming from Archive. Archive is a very famous repository for physics domain. So suppose I want to read this particular paper from Google Scholar. So what we need to do, I do not, if you open here, it will go to the SEM folder. But what you need to do here, you just directly click the PDF format. So your browser must have the PDF version of the file. Then you can do a magic, something like that. So this paper is now coming in full PDF format. It will take a little bit of time because it is coming from Archive. And my point is there, I can utilize a tool here which can read on behalf of me. It can summarize the document for me. It can give me 5-6 major key points or magnets. On the basis of that, I can take a decision that whether I am going for reading or not. So nowadays, only availability of the document in full text format is not enough. We are living in an age of information explosion. Many open access channels are there, many documents we can read. So we have still 24 hours in a day. So we need to be selective. There need to be a tool which can guide me. So suppose this is available for reading, but it's a 10-page document. So reading a 10-page document, you all know a technical paper, 10-page technical paper is requires at least 3 to 4 hours of high concentration. So apart from that, you see here what I am doing. I will call my assistant on behalf of me, and you will guide me that whether I should go for the full text reading or not. If I click this tool, I will be showing you is working. So this tool is called Scholarcy. If I click Scholarcy, it will take a few seconds to load. It can read on behalf of me, and it can finally guide me. If something wrong happens, this one. So this is also available. This Scholarcy is also available as an extension Google. You can simply search your Chrome web store by Scholarcy. And if I click, see whether it is working or not. Yes, it started working now. So it will go through the entire paper, and see, it can identify the key concepts for me. This is called Scholarcy Highlight. So it can give me 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or every time it gives you 5 points. It gives you 5 points. So on the basis of these 5 magnets or key point, I can understand the document and I decided to. Another advantage you see, so all the references it can extract. So this paper has got 6 references. and reference which one is channel and which is not, that can also be listed here. So suppose we normally go in the network mode of reading, so I find some references in this way. All scholar academic paper, you see here the last one is not available in the open access channel. Rest all 5 sites is available in the open access channel. I will click here like those person. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. There are many other tools, but some other times I will share with you. Over to Koel.
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার। স্যার এত সুন্দর করে বলার জন্য অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। আর আশা করি এই সেশনটা সবার কাছে খুব হেল্পফুল আর বেনিফিশিয়াল হয়েছে। কারো যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে, তাহলে কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকে, তাহলে সেটা জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারেন। Anyone, any questions?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello, sir.
বলুন ম্যাডাম।
না স্যার, আমি একজন স্টুডেন্ট বলছিলাম।
হ্যাঁ বলুন বলুন।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, বলছি যে আপনি ওই যে দেখাচ্ছিলেন না যে আমরা যেমন ওই সায়েন্স ডাইরেক্ট বা অনেক সময় ওয়াইলি বা গুগল স্কলারে গিয়ে যেগুলো করি, সেগুলোতে ওই রিসার্চ আর্টিকেলগুলোর ক্ষেত্রে সেখানে যেগুলোর ওপেন অ্যাক্সেস থাকে না, সেগুলোতে ক্লিক করলে অনেক সময় পিডিএফ ফর্মটা দেখায় না। মানে আমরা রিসেন্ট একটা প্রজেক্ট করছিলাম যেখানে আমাদের অনেক রিসার্চ আর্টিকেল ঘাঁটতে হচ্ছিল, কিন্তু সেখানে যেগুলোর ওপেন অ্যাক্সেস ছিল না সেগুলোতে মানে পিডিএফ ফরম্যাটটা আসছিল না, শুধু অ্যাবস্ট্রাক্টটুকুই দেখাচ্ছিল। আর তারপর বলছিল যে বাকিটা করতে সেটা রেজিস্টার করতে হবে বা টাকা দিতে হবে। এইটা কি কোনোভাবে করানো যায়?
সেটাই তো আমি বলতে চেষ্টা করলাম এতক্ষণ যে 50% স্টিল নট অ্যাভেলেবেল। কিন্তু যে টুলগুলো আমরা ব্যবহার করছি, যেগুলো দেখালাম আমি, এই যে কোপারনিও বা কোর, অনেক সময় কি হয়, ও সায়েন্স ডিরেক্টের ওখানে ফুল টেক্সট দেখাচ্ছে না, কিন্তু কোথাও না কোথাও সেই ডকুমেন্টটা আছে হয়তো, সেটা আমরা জানি না, এবং এটা সব জানা সম্ভব নয়, ইটস হাইলি ডিস্ট্রিবিউটেড। সেই জন্য আমার সাজেশন হচ্ছে এই যে 3টে এক্সটেনশন আমি দেখালাম, unpaywall.org, কোপারনিও, আর একটা হচ্ছে কোর, এই 3টে অবশ্যই গুগল ক্রোম এক্সটেনশন হিসেবে ব্যবহার করতে হবে। আর স্কলারসি যে রিসোর্সটা দেখালাম, সেটা আমার হয়ে পড়তে পারবে, আমাকে বলে দিতে পারবে এই 5-6টা মেজর পয়েন্টের উপরে পেপারটা আছে, সো দ্যাট আই ক্যান টেক এ ডিসিশন। বুঝে গেল? স্টিল তো 100% তো এখনো ওপেন অ্যাক্সেসে রিসোর্সে অ্যাভেলেবল নয়, বাট বাই ওসিএলসি যেটা প্রেডিক্ট করছে বা অন্যান্য এক্সপার্টরা, যে বাই দ্য ইয়ার 2040 100% উইল বি ওপেন অ্যাক্সেস ইন ফিউচার। কিন্তু মুশকিলটা এটা তখনও থাকবে যে ইটস হাইলি ডিস্ট্রিবিউটেড, অসংখ্য রিসোর্সেস মধ্যে এটা ভেঙে আছে। যেমন আমি দেখালাম ওপেন ডোর, ডোয়াপ, ডোয়াজ এবং আরো অনেক রিসোর্স, সবগুলোকে একসঙ্গে যেমন বেস কম্বাইন করছে, সমস্ত রিসোর্স থিসিস রিপোজিটরিকে ওএটিডি কম্বাইন করছে। এরকম সিঙ্গেল উইন্ডো সার্চ সার্ভিস ভবিষ্যতে আসবে, আর লাইব্রেরি আমাদেরকে সেটা জানতে হবে, মানে সেটাকে লাইব্রেরি সার্চ ইন্টারফেসের মধ্যে ইনক্লুড করতে হবে। এটা ইউজারদের পক্ষে কোনোদিনই জানা সম্ভব নয়, ইটস সাচ এ হিউজ অ্যামাউন্ট অফ রিসোর্স।
আচ্ছা স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
ওকে,
আচ্ছা, এনি মোর কোয়েশ্চেন্স? আর কারো কিছু জিজ্ঞাসা আছে?
হ্যালো স্যার।
Yes, please.
মানে আমি একজন স্টুডেন্ট, মানে আমার একটা প্রশ্ন, সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমরা মানে কিছু কিছু ক্ষেত্রে মানে কিছু বইয়ের দরকার হয় অনলাইনে। এখন তো মানে ধরুন পিডিএফ ডাউনলোড করব, এবার তার জন্য ভালো মানে কোনটা চুজ করলে বেটার হয়, যে আমি তাহলে মানে অনেক সময় হয় যে আমি একটা টপিকে খুঁজি, অন্য একটা টপিকের চলে আসে, বা মানে রিলেভেন্ট জিনিসটা পাওয়া যায় না অনেক সময়, বা পেলাম হয়তো সেটা পুরোটা ঠিকঠাক আসে না। এরকম কিছু কিছু ক্ষেত্রে মানে পিডিএফ ডকুমেন্ট ডাউনলোড করা যায়, বাট মানে অরিজিনাল কপিগুলো আমরা কিভাবে পেতে পারি?
অরিজিনাল কপি বলতে কি বলতে চাইছেন? আহ,
মানে যেমন ধরুন একটা কোনো বই, সেটার মানে পিডিএফ ফরম্যাটটা টোটাল।
অরিজিনাল বইয়েরই ফরম্যাট তো? আচ্ছা, বুঝতে পেরেছি।
হ্যাঁ।
আচ্ছা, তো আমরা সার্চ করব, এই যে আপনি যেটা বললেন যে আমি সার্চ করছি একটা কনটেক্সটে, অন্য কনটেক্সটে রেজাল্ট দেখাচ্ছে, এইটা আমি দেখুন আপনাদের বলছিলাম, সেটা হচ্ছে এইটাকে আমরা টেকনিক্যালি বলি ক্রস ডিসিপ্লিনারি সেমান্টিক ট্রি। আমি সার্চ করছি কম্পিউটার ড্রাইভার দিয়ে, গুগল আমাকে রেজাল্ট দিচ্ছে স্ক্রু ড্রাইভারের। কেন? কারণ ও তো এত ইন্টেলিজেন্ট নয় যে টার্ম ড্রাইভার যা স্পেলিংটা সেম, সেটা কম্পিউটার ড্রাইভারের ক্ষেত্রে আলাদা মিনিং, আর হচ্ছে এর ক্ষেত্রে আলাদা মিনিং, স্ক্রু ড্রাইভারের ক্ষেত্রে আলাদা মিনিং, সেটা ও জানে না। সেই জন্য এই যে টেকনিকগুলো আমি দেখালাম, অল ইন টাইটেল, আপনি যেটা সার্চ করছেন সবসময় প্রথমে খুঁজবেন সেটা টাইটেলে অ্যাভেলেবেল কিনা, অল ইন টাইটেল বা ইন টাইটেল ব্যবহার করে, তাহলে সবসময় এটা আসবে গুগলের ক্ষেত্রে। অন্যান্য এরিয়াতে যখন খুঁজবেন তখন দেখবেন, প্রথম ট্রাই করবেন টাইটেল বলে কোনো ফিল্ড আছে কিনা, সেইটার এগেনস্টে কোয়েরিটা দিলে অনেক বেশি রেলিভেন্ট হবে সার্চটা। সেকেন্ড যেটা হচ্ছে যে অ্যাজ এ স্টুডেন্ট আপনি বইয়ের অ্যাক্সেস চান, আমি যে সাইটগুলো দেখালাম সেইগুলো প্রথমে দেখুন আপনার বই রয়েছে কিনা, রেলিভেন্ট ডকুমেন্ট, এগুলো সব প্রত্যেকটাই অত্যন্ত রেপুটেড ওয়েবসাইট। নেক্সট যেটা হচ্ছে, তাতে যদি না পান তাহলে openlibrary.org-তে রেজিস্ট্রেশন করুন, ফ্রি অফ কস্ট রেজিস্ট্রেশন দেয়। পৃথিবীর প্রায় প্রত্যেকটা বই ওখানে অ্যাভেলেবেল, কিন্তু সবগুলোই তো আর কপিরাইট ফ্রি নয়, ওরা লিগালি সেটা আপনাকে ফুল টেক্সট দিতে পারবে না, কিন্তু আপনি ওই বইটাকে বড় করতে পারবেন ইলেকট্রনিক্যালি। বড় করা মানে লাইব্রেরি থেকে যেমন বই ইস্যু করে সেরকম ভাবে ওখানেও বই ইস্যু করতে পারবেন। আপনার একটা পার্সোনাল লাইব্রেরি তৈরি হবে, সেই লাইব্রেরিতে বইটা আসবে এবং 14 দিন অবধি থাকবে। আবার যদি আপনার 14 দিনের মধ্যে পড়া শেষ না হয়, তো ইউ ক্যান এগেন রিনিউ দ্যাট। সো এইভাবে আপনি ওপেন লাইব্রেরিটাকে ব্যবহার করতে পারেন। এবং গ্র্যাজুয়েট লেভেলে প্রায় মোস্ট অফ দ্য ডকুমেন্টস নাও অ্যাভেলেবল ইন ওপেন।
ওকে স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
ওকে, আর কিছু কোশ্চেন আছে কোয়েল?
না স্যার, মনে হচ্ছে তো আর কিছু নেই। থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার, ওয়ান সেকেন্ড, থ্যাংক ইউ। আপনি এত শর্ট নোটিসে এগ্রি করে ডেলিভার করেছেন লেকচার, এর জন্য আপনাকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। আর
ওকে,
আর তার সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি যারা এখানে এসেছেন। আমাদের প্রিন্সিপাল ম্যাডামকেও থ্যাঙ্কস জানাচ্ছি, কারণ ওনার এনকারেজমেন্টে, ওনার সাপোর্টে এটা পুরো অর্গানাইজ করা। আমাদের ওয়েবিনার সাব কমিটির কনভেনার, আইকিউএসি কোঅর্ডিনেটর, বার্সার, তারপর টেকনিক্যাল সাপোর্ট টিমে যারা আছেন প্রত্যেককেই থ্যাঙ্কস। আর থ্যাঙ্কস অলসো টু গুগল। আর আশা করি খুব ভালো লাগলো প্রত্যেকের। তো আজকে আমরা এখানেই শেষ করি। থ্যাংক ইউ অল।